Can y'all see that okay, or do I need to lower the screen?
Say lower the screen.
All right. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to work on 3 packet tracers. I'm going to go on with you in class. I'm going to let's see how Elmo works here. Okay. First things first. We have our standard LAN topology, right? And we're going to have to break this out with this 192.168.23.0/24 network, right? So everyone's cool with that, right? We know what we need to do. That's a full octet, correct? So if I have the 192.168.23.0 network, that's all it's saying. It's saying that our mask is /24, right?
Yep.
We're going to be operating for this entire Class C address. All right. Now, since we have a Class C address, it's asking us, the first thing that we have to look for is our first subnet, right? Correct?
Yes.
Our first subnet has how many hosts?
60.
60. Well, think about that. What is your next, or your increment value that's greater than 60? 64, right? So we know 64 is here, right? Correct? So we're borrowing the 25th bit, 26th bit, right? So we're essentially, even though we've given it a Class C address of the 192.168.23.0, our first address is going to be 192.168.23.0/26. Reason it's the class 26 is because we're only going to have 64 hosts on this network. So if I have 64 hosts on this CIDR network, right, which we've already decided, this would be our first network, right? So that's going to take us to, what's our next one? If I have 64,
This one's going to be 64.
we'll start at 64, right? So what it says, our second subnet that we're going to use is going to be for future student LAN increase, right? We're projecting that we're going to need 28 more drops. So what is the next number higher than 28 that is on our scale score? Well, let me just draw it out for you. Our next number is what? 32, right? So now we're over here. This is 24, so this is 25. This is 26. Now we're /27, right? Everyone's with me. What this means is that our network mask would be end in a 128, end in a 192, end in a 224, end in a 240, 248, 252, 254, 255, right? Those are our mask values. So if we needed the 28, boom, we got that right there, right? That gives us 32. So this will be a 27. So now I got to go up 32 hosts, right? What is 32 plus 64?
96.
I'm now starting my next network segment on 96. So the third subnet says we need 12 hosts, right? So what's my next number bigger than 12? 16. So now I'm at 28, right? So I put my slash 28 just so that I'm aware. All the slash 28 is telling me is what my mask value is, right? Remember that? What we talked about a little bit on the subnetting worksheet, subnetting cheat sheet at the beginning of the semester. So now I have my 28. So if I'm going to increment by 16, now what do I have? 192, 168, 23, 112, right? This is our first, second, third, fourth. How many total lands do we have? 7. Fifth, sixth, seventh. Can y'all even see the 7th? Okay, just making sure. So if we're here there, then it says what do we have? ISP LAN up to 8 hosts. Well, that's a little tricky, right? What's our slash number? What's our solder number? Not what our network increment is. What is our solder number? It's asking for 8 hosts, right?
Right. It'll be 28.
It's still got to be 28. Does anyone know why? Because it says 8 usable hosts. If we say we're going increment by 8, we lost our broadcast and our network address, so we only have 6 usable hosts. So there's the trick. So we have another 28 again, right? So that's going to give us a 192.168.23.128, right? Everyone with me? Now we get the fun stuff. We need a point-to-point. What is a point-to-point? I need 2 addresses only, right? Just 2 addresses. I need an existing WAN point-to-point. So if I need just two available addresses, I'm going to be doing right here, which is my slash 30, right? And you can't use those. So I do a slash 30. Then I have the 192, 168, 23, 132 slash 30. Then I have a 192, 168, 23-136 slash 30. Right? Everyone with me? Now that we know what we have for our hosts, right? Let's start looking at this. For our server, it said to go into configuration mode. So we'll go into configuration. Well, I guess it would help if I powered on the server, right? Okay. Let's go into configuration. Fast Ethernet 0. Well, I'm sorry. Before I do that, first off, let's reason I got 2% is already powered on the server. Stupid me. Okay. What we have here, we have our drawing, right? Let's figure out what we're going to do so we can input these numbers easily. For the server, configure the second highest usable IP address on the existing ISP LAN. So first, let's do it this way. What is our first LAN? First one is our existing LAN, right? Then we have our future LAN. We have our existing ISP LAN, right? Future ISP LAN. Correct?
Yes.
Then we have our WANs. Okay. So the first one is saying the server. Fast Ethernet, right? It's asking us to configure the second highest usable IP address on the existing ISP LAN. Well, here's my existing ISP LAN. What are my IP addresses? I can't use 96 and I can't use 111. 111 is being my broadcast. So, well, let's just figure these out real quick. Our hosts. We have 0 to 64, right? So our host would be 1 to 62 because 63 is our broadcast, right? Correct?
Yes.
64 to 96, so that would be a 65 to a 94. right? 96 to 112, so we'll have a 97 to 110, correct? Everyone's with me?
Yep.
112 to 128, what do we have? 113 to what?
126.
126. Then what do we have here? We have 128, so it'll be 129 to 130. 31 is about, okay, yeah. Then we have 33, 133, 134. Then we'll have 137 and 138. Okay? So for our server, it's wanting to know the second highest on the ISP LAN. Well, what's the highest host we have? 110. So what would be the second highest? 109 is correct. But, now here's my question. What's our mask values? Alright? We have a /26. Our mask is a 192, right? Our 27 will give you a 224. Our 28s give you what? 240s. Then all these are going to be 252s. Now, notice we were Class C, right? Everyone's with me. So we know what that is. Now, what is it connected to? It's connected to the router 1, fast Ethernet, right? And it says configure the highest usable. So, well, we know that's a 192.168.23.110, right? So what does that tell me about the server? What is going to be the default gateway for the server? 110. Because that's how it's getting out of that gateway, getting out of that router. Okay? Now, we need to figure out router 1's serial interface, right? Configuring the highest usable address on the existing WAN. Well, we have 2 WAN drops, right? Why did it tell us to do? Okay, on the existing WAN. Because we only have that one WAN line. So the highest on the existing WAN. Here's our existing WAN with the 252. Our highest is what? So now we have our router 2 serial 0, 0, 0. Correct? We're using the lowest usable one, which would be what? $129, correct? Because this is a point-to-point link, you only have those 2 addresses. Now that we're R2, let's configure the R2 fast Ethernet. And it says to use what? The highest usable for the existing student LAN. So if I'm looking at the highest student LAN, I have what? 62? So I have a 192.168.23.62 because that's my highest usable on that existing student LAN. Now, for host A and host B, they're both going to be 192s, 168.23s, right? Well, A is going to be what? The first 2 IP addresses or the lowest one on the existing LAN. So I have 1 and a 2. Correct? Y'all with me? Now, why do they name the routers 192.168.1.1s, right? How many of y'all wondered that? It's a point-to-point connection. Why are we naming the router .1.1? Anyone know? So you can use the whole Class C subnet? So you identify the router as being a .1. Well, that should be your first PC, right? I'll throw that question up later after we get through this. All right. Now that we know what we have, everyone's with me, right? Y'all all asleep? Okay. We need to connect the serial DCE cable to RSP1. Okay? So we need to find our serial cable. And it's going to be on which one? Serial 000 right there. And we're going to connect it to 000 here. The clock rate is especially important. Right here. It says connect the serial 000 to 000. Why do we need a DCE? The clock rate is 64,000, right? So we'll get to that in just a second. I'm just trying to get the cables put together for us. From PC1, the first Ethernet port, to switch 1 central. So let's just do a straight through copper. We'll come out of here, and we're going to connect to the first Ethernet port. We're going to do the same thing here, and connect that to the second one, right? Okay. Now we need to connect the interface FA0 on router 2 to R2, or to the highest fast Ethernet port on switch 1 central. So, from our fast Ethernet 0 to 0, and then we're going to come all the way down here to fast Ethernet 24, right? Correct? Notice it said fast Ethernet port, not the gigabit Ethernet port, the fast Ethernet port. Got to be very closely on that. Now connect the fast Ethernet 00 on router 1 to Eagle server. So, router 1, fast Ethernet 00 to the server. We now have our cables connected, correct? We have our IP addresses, we have our cables connected. Now we can start doing our configurations. So, let's look at this. For the server, configure the second highest usable IP address, which we did on back up here, right? So we're going to turn it on for this port. We're going to assign 192.168.23.109, right? But what does it subnet mask for server 01? Well, let's come over here. 109 gives you the 240. Right? Is everyone with me? Okay. 109 for the server address, right? So I came over here to find what LAN was it on. 109's right here. What was our mask? Since we're in the incrementing in class, or breaking it out in classes, or the deoctet, it's going to be 255, 255, 255, and then whatever our subnet mask is. Are y'all with me now? So that's how we're going to break it down from here on out. Now that we have that on, we're good on there. We can close that one out. Now let's go to router 1. We're going to the configuration mode. Okay. Fast Ethernet 00. We want to use the highest, 192.168.1.110, right? And it needs to connect on the 240. And that port needs to be turned on, correct? Everyone's with me? Okay. Now we also need to connect serial 000. We need to turn that port on. IP address for that serial 000 is what, a 192.168.23. What? 130? Now that that's a serial, we know that it's .252 because it's a point-to-point serial connection, right? The WAN connections. So we come over here, and we're good there. Now, let's come over here. Do what? Oh, yes. We need to put the clock rate in, don't we? Thank you very much. So, how do you put the clock rate in on the serial? We can set it right here to 64,000. Okay? Clock rate is 64,000. Thank you. I would have come back and got it later, but because I'd have wondered what was wrong, and then it would have told me clock rate, and I got it back in. Now, R2 Central. Fast Ethernet for the R2. Well, you have to turn the port on. R2 Fast Ethernet is going to be a .62, right? So 192.168.23. What did I just say? 62. And we know that the first LAN is going to end in a 192. Correct? Everyone with me? Okay. Now let's go to the serial port on it. We'll turn the serial port on. 192.168.23.130. And again, it's going to be a 252 because that's the receiving end. You have a just remember, when you have a serial port and you're connecting to another serial port, that's going to be a point-to-point. You will always have a 255, 255, 255, 252 address.
Should this be 129?
Huh?
Should this be .129 instead of .130? Because R1 was 130.
Oh, R1 was 130? Yeah.
What was the fast Ethernet number?
For which one? For this one?
Yeah.
It's going to be 62. So now that I close that out, boom, I've got my connectivity here. Why is this not connecting?
It likes a different type of cable there.
Oh, duh. Thank you. No, it's a crossover. I needed this cable to go here. Does anyone know why? A server is on a different layer. Hang on for just a second. I'm in class.
You're in class?
Yes.
You have class at 7:05.
Yes, I do, but I also have a 540.
Okay, I was just making sure I couldn't get a hold of you.
I'll talk to you later.
Your son fell and hurt himself today going to the TV.
Okay, I'll talk to you later.
Call me when you get a chance. Love you.
That's the third time she's called me, so I thought it was something important. All right. So now we have to come up with these two right here. So let's come over here to do we got to configure it, but what we got to do to a computer before we can configure it? We got to turn it on, right?
Generally.
Okay. Now we'll turn on, enable that fast Ethernet port. So we need a 192.168.1.1, and it's going to be the 192, right? It's actually 23. Correct? 192.168.23.1 because this is A, and I've turned it on. Everyone's with me so far, right? Okay, now let's do the same thing on this one. We'll turn this baby on. Go over to config, fast Ethernet, 192.168.23.2 with a 192 address. Okay, give it just a second. Helps if you turn on the port. Okay, now we have all that, right? Everyone's with me? We've basically done our IP addressing. Now we have a few more steps we need to do. For PC 1A and 1B, in addition to the default gate or IP and default gateway, we need to use DNS. So let's go back into here. Settings. Our gateway is going to be what? 192.168.23. What? 109?
Gateway?
Yep. It's going to be this port right here.
Yep.
So the R2 fast Ethernet would be 62. Not 162, 62. Our DNS server will be 192.168.23. What is the server IP?
It's gonna be
109. Okay? So we're going to have the same thing over here. We're going to have a 192.168.23. What was the gateway? 62. DNS server is a 192.168.23.109, right? Everyone's with me? Cool. For the server, in addition to the IP, we've got to give it a default gateway. And we also have to enable DNS. So what we do, we come over here to DNS, we turn it on. Right? And we have to give it an A record. So it's going to be Eagle server. Eagle dash server dot example.com. Oops, wrong area. And that's a 192.168.23.109. Add it. We've got it. Now we go over to the fast Ethernet. Or the global settings. The DNS server is going to be 192.168.23.109. Its gateway is going to be a 192.168.23.110. Now, why is its gateway .110? Because its router right here, this port, this fast Ethernet port, is 110. Because that's how you get out. Okay? So that we've done that, and I need to enable the HTTPS service. So we come over here, HTTPS, or HTTP is now on. Okay? So we can close that out. Now let's look at router 1, ISP. All right. Since our serial interface, we need to set the clock weight, which we already did earlier because Anthony reminded me to do it earlier, right? So we can come over here to configuration. We can look at there. We've set it there, correct? Everyone following along? Okay. None are on the R2's side. So we've built it by putting the cables there. Now we need to configure the network. All we got to do is configure the static routes and the interfaces to the GUI. The static route on R1 should point to the existing student LAN subnet via the serial interface. So what we got to do is we're going to click on 1 here. Let's do a static route. Y'all with me? So we need to point to the 192.168.1. What network? No. The 1.1 network, and it's going to be 255.255.255.192 because we're looking for that network, right? But it's got to go through whatever my next hop is. So which would be 192.168.23, actually be 20. Thank you. I know what you're meaning by 23 now. What is my next hop for the serial? R1 is 130, so it'd be 129. Boom. Come on. There. It's the network address, not the first IP address. Sorry about that. Okay. Now we have to go to R2, do the exact same thing, except we got to put in the Eagle server IP address, which is 192.168.23. What? What's the Eagle server IP address? 109? Its mask is a 255.255.255. What? 240? And again, we're going to go out of 130 here. But Eagle server is on what network? It's on my 96, right? So boom, we add that. And we're good there. Okay, the static route on R2 Central should be the same default static route, which points. Okay. Now let's see what it says we missed. Oh, incorrect A name record. In the IP address, R2 static route, fast Ethernet port on R1. Okay, so let's go back in here to router 1 fast Ethernet port. Fast Ethernet port.
Take the.
No.
Yeah.
That makes a difference. And what else did it say? I need the A name record. The address is incorrect. And then my static route for R2. So let's go back here. Now, let's look at the A record under DNS. Eagle server .example.com, and it was 192.168.23. What? 109. Add it. There we go. Now on R2 we need to do our static route. Is that the one it wanted? No, it wants a different one. So let's. Okay, we're going to 192.168.1.23. What was it? 96. 255.240. Is that what we said? Yes. And it's going to go out of 192.168.1 or 23 dot. And I'm looking for that hop, which would have been 130. And I bet I know what I did. I put that dot one on there. Come on. Or is it looking for 129? Oh, it's looking for route 0. Okay. Static route 0 to That's not what it's wanting either. It's looking for route 0. What?
If you leave the network in mask 0.0.0.0 and have the next hop as Route 1 serial IP address, it should take that one.
Yep.
Is that the one? Yeah, that's what it was. I was just trying to remember exactly. It's static route. I always forget. But that's your static route. So if it asks for route 0, always give what the next hop is and say 0000 for both the. That's why I had 0000 in there multiple times. I knew it had zeros, but I just didn't remember which way it was. But thank you, Cameron. So we've done it. Any questions on that one? Okay, so now that we're on number 7, we're going to go through this really quick as far as the LAN addresses and things, and we'll go from there, all right? So the first LAN, we have to have up to 400 hosts, right?
Yes.
So what's going to give us 400 hosts, right? This number, the /23, correct?
Yes.
So our first network is going to be a 172.16.0.0/23, not the 22. So what that means is our next network is going to start on a 172.16. What? Two, because there's our increment. You have 1 here, which would be, if you come back into this next one, you're going to have a 1. This network increment is by 2, by 4. So now we're on here. What's our next one? We need 180 hosts, right? Well, it's still bigger than this, so we need to come down to a /24, right? So that means we're going to need a 172.16.3.0 because now our increment is what? 1. Because that gives me 256 addresses with 254 usable, right? So let's start this. We got 172.16.0.1 to a 1.254. My next network will be a 2.0 to 2.254. Actually, it'll be a 2.1. My next one will be a 3.1 because we're starting with 3. Now, what does it say? We need 40 hosts, right? Well, can't use that one. Got to use this one, right? So now I'm on a /26. So if I'm on /26, I'm incrementing by 64s now, right? So I still have a 3.1. So my next network will be a 172.16.3.64. Are y'all following along? No questions on that so far? With 64, I'm now at a slash. We'll figure out the slash for this one. 64, what does that make it? 62, right? Then I have to get 18 hosts. So now I'm down on the 27. So I'm still now at a 3.64. I need 18 hosts, so I'm going by 32s. So what's my next network? I'm going by 32s. 64 96. So my first one would be 3.97. You wish that was your GPA. Huh? 3.97, that's a pretty good GPA, isn't it? All right. So if we know we're on the 96, 95, then 3.94 is our range. Everyone with me? Now we have our wins, right? We only need the 2. So this would be 3.98. So I have a 172.16.3. What was my next network? Because if I'm going by 4s, I'd be a /29 or /30. Well, what am I? I ended in 97. So what is my next network? Would be the 96, right? Now add 4 to this. So I got a 172.16.3. What? Huh? And then I got my 104, right? So what I've got here, I've got my range, ended 98, 99, 100, 3.101 to 3.102. And then I've got 3.105 to 3.106, right? Cool, we've got our 7. So, FA00, well, let's see. For the server, the second highest usable IP address on the ISP LAN. Existing ISP LAN, the server address is going to be what? Second highest? It's going to be a 172.16. These are all 172s. Okay. My server address, what is it? If I'm right here on my existing ISP LAN, what's my second highest? 3.61. Right? RSP's fast Ethernet would be 62. Now we have our WAN interfaces. So here's our WANs. We need the highest one being, which would be 3.102, and then 3.101, right? Then we have our R2, which you connect. We want the highest on the student LAN, which would be 1.254. And then we want our 2 lowest, which would be 0.1 and 0.2. Everyone with me? Trust me, it works.
Fair enough.
Huh? You ready? Or what are you coming up with, Todd? Are you coming up with something different?
I'll come up with different numbers.
We'll see. All right. We need to okay, on R2, first thing first, you don't have a WAN card. So you got to make sure you've turned off the machine, and it tells you it wants a WIC2T. So we're going to take this WIC2T and drop it in there. Okay? Now we can turn this baby back on. Now we have a WIC2T on R2. Connect the DCE cable to ISP 000. So let's go back over to our cabling. Our DCE is right here, and it's going to connect to this serial 000, which is fine. Now we have all our connections, correct? For all devices, make sure the power is on for the devices and the interface. So let's come here. Turn that on. Configure fast Ethernet. We got to turn that on, right? Our server IP address is what? 172.16. It's right behind me, guys.
3.61.
1. Dot,
3.61.
oh, 3.61. 3.61. What is my mask then? Well, come back over here. Where's that range? 3.61. If I'm going by 27s, my mask is going to be 255, 255, 255, 224. Okay?
No,
What do you mean no?
61 is it?
61. 61 is gonna be 192 now.
Do what?
61 is gonna be 192 now.
What did he say? 26? Oh, okay. I went one too far. Okay, thank you. Okay. We've got that done. Now, what we're going to do is we're just going into configuration and setting up the interfaces. That's all I want to do right now. What's my fast Ethernet 00 for R1? That'll be 3.62. And that's going to be and then that's on there. Serial 00, we already have a clock rate set. We turned it on. And it's going to be a 172.16 dot what? 3 dot what? 102. And fix that. Then let's go over here to the configuration. Serial 00. So 172.16.3 dot. What's my serial for R2? 101. Okay. Y'all with me so far? I don't need the clock rate on this one. So, need to make sure that this device is physically on. That's fine. This switch, okay, it's on. Okay, that's fine. The switch is fine. PC1, or sorry, fast Ethernet. What's the fast Ethernet port on this one? The fast Ethernet port is 1.254. And I have for this one 255 with my 23 254.0. And I need to turn on that port. So now I have my connectivity over here. 1A, the machine is on. Go to configuration, go to fast Ethernet 172.16.0.1 with a mask of 254.0. Okay, that's good. Then configuration on here. 172.16.0.2. That's fine. Let's go to global settings. The gateway is going to be a 172.16. What's that router? Fast Ethernet 1.254. The DNS that we're going to be setting up will be that server's IP address of 172.16.3.61. One 172.16.3.61. The gateway is going to be a 172.16. R2 1.254. Okay.
I don't believe the ports are on.
Oh, on the configuration?
Yep.
Okay. Those are up. Now, I got to go over here to Eagle Server, HTTP. Got to turn it on. DNS, we have to go in here, eagle-server.example.com. And it's going to be a 172.16.3.61. Okay. That's on. DNS, HTTP. Okay. You know how to configure the switch or the. Alright, now let's see what it says that we need to do. Eagle Server, I didn't put on the DNS, I didn't enable DNS and didn't put a default gateway. And I need to put the static routes in. But the serial 000, I probably got them backwards. So, let's go back here. 102, right? 3.102. And then here, 3.101. There. Then in here we needed to enable DNS. And then I need to come in here and I need to do my static routes. So static routes. And next top is going to be 172.16.3.101. And then for Eagle Server, its static route is going to be a 172.16.3. And that's going to be on the 172.16.0.102. Now let's just check results just to see what else that I forgot. I got to put the default gateway on there. Route 0. Let me go back and put the default gateways on these, on Eagle Server. The default gateway for this one is going to be a 172.16.3. Router 3.62. 172.16.3.61. Okay. Those are set. Now go to static. Okay. Let's look at the static route here. Alright, let's see what it's got. Those are good. It's just saying my IP addresses are wrong. And that would be why the route isn't working. Did I get them flipped again? Oh, do I? I do, don't I? It's 97 and 98. So let's do it this way. I'm on R2, so it'll be 97. Let me go back into here. The serial should be on this one, 98, right? Or, huh? It should be 90, yeah, it's 98 on that one. So, this one then will be a 97. And then I've got my static on here. Got to go to remove that one because that's 0, 0, 0. And there's that one. And then I've got this baby on here that I got to go back in here to my static here. Remove, remove. On this one, it's going to be a 172.16. 172.16.3. What was it? 98 for that.
97.
Oh, is it 97? There we go. We got everything done. Is there any questions?
I went too high up there.
Yeah, I would looked one lower. That was my fault. So everyone okay with that? Did I blow your mind? Brent, did that help you? Considering I did this with having a migraine for the first half of the day, I think I did pretty good to get through 2 of these. Yes, I did. It's all recorded. It will be out there for y'all probably sometime tomorrow whenever I get it moved over. Do what? Before they're due? Anyway,